You wake up and for about 3 seconds, everything is fine. 3 seconds, that's all you get. And then your foot slides to the edge of the bed, the side where they always slept, and there's just cold mattress. No warm breathing weight. No grunt of mild annoyance at being disturbed. You lie there and you don't move. You know you should get up. You know the coffee isn't going to make itself. But there's this thing that happens in your chest. Not dramatic, not movie grief. Just a kind of stillness that doesn't feel right. You get up anyway. You walk to the kitchen, and you realize you're listening for the sound that isn't coming. Pause on hardwood. That particular clickety-clack that you never once appreciated until this moment when it's gone. You pick up the blanket they used. You're not even thinking about it. You just bring it to your face. The corn chip smell of their paws, that specific, inexplicable, perfect smell, it's still there. Faint, already fading. Someone told me once, it's just a dog. We're going to come back to that sentence. Here's the thing about losing a pet in the eyes of most of society. There's a kind of unofficial timeline, unspoken, but very real. People text you, some send flowers, a few say the right thing, and then, quietly, almost without anyone deciding it, the expectation shifts. A week goes by, maybe 2, and the world around you starts operating as though the grief has a natural ceiling. Have you thought about getting another one? Someone asks it, and they mean it kindly, and you have to actually stop yourself from saying something you'll regret. The cultural script is clear. Feel sad. Take a beat. Move forward. It's a dog, not a person, not a parent. Their degrees of loss, the logic goes, and this one should be manageable. This one shouldn't still be sitting heavy on your chest 3 months later when a stranger's dog does that tail wag full body wiggle thing at the park and suddenly your eyes are burning and you're trying to look casual about it. That gap between what grief is allocated for a pet and what owners actually live through is where the real story is. Grief researchers actually have a name for what happens when society tells you your loss doesn't rank. It's called disenfranchised grief, grief that isn't publicly acknowledged, mourned, or socially supported. And dog owners experience it constantly. But here's what's interesting. Actually, wait, let me back up, because I was about to undersell this. I was going to say it surprises researchers. That's not quite right. It doesn't just surprise them, it shows up in clinical data, peer-reviewed data. Studies comparing the grief response of losing a pet to losing a close human family member and finding them, in many cases, comparable. Not anecdotally, not in online forums, in the literature. That's not pet owners being dramatic, that's biology. So why? Why does this hit so hard? In 2015, a team at Azablu University in Japan, led by researcher Miho Nagasawa, published a study in Science that kind of broke people's brains a little bit. They found that when dogs and their owners make eye contact, both experience a spike in oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same neurochemical loop that fires between a mother and her infant. Let that sit for a second. Your dog looked at you, actually looked at you, and your brain responded the way it responds to the most primal bond in human experience. And this wasn't a one-time thing. It was happening every morning, every evening, every time you came home and they did the tippy-taps by the door like you'd been gone for 3 years instead of 40 minutes. I wasn't going to go this deep into the neuroscience, honestly. Short pause. But this is the part that actually changed how I understood my own grief when I lost mine. Your brain wasn't just attached to your dog emotionally. It was neurochemically dependent on that relationship, built over years, reinforced daily, and then gone. Here's the reframe that I think matters most. You didn't just lose a dog, you lost a structure. You lost the Zoomies explosion at 6 a.m. that you complained about every single morning and would give anything to be woken up by right now. You lost the specific tippy-tap sound when you picked up the leash. You lost the weight of them across your feet on the couch, that particular, inconvenient, perfect pressure that somehow made watching TV feel complete. But more than the routine, you lost the relationship in your life that asked nothing from you except presence, no judgment, no agenda. You didn't need to perform. You didn't need to explain a bad day. You didn't need to be okay. You could just sit on the kitchen floor at 11 p.m. for no reason and they would just come and sit next to you. Like that was exactly what they were there for. Because it was. Neuroscience has a framework for this. Your brain is a pattern machine. It builds what researchers call habit loops. Neuro grooves carved by repetition. And you had hundreds of them built around your dog. The morning walk, the feeding time ritual, the way they'd do a full sploot on the cool kitchen tile every single summer afternoon like a little furry crime scene. Each of those loops was a groove in your neural architecture, and when the dog is gone, those grooves don't disappear, they still fire. They just hit nothing. The trigger activates and the expected reward isn't there. Researchers studying pet bereavement have started calling this routine disruption grief, and it's a significant part of why the loss feels so physically disorienting. It's not just sadness. Your brain is reaching for a pattern that no longer exists, dozens of times a day, and registering a kind of low-level alarm each time. That's not weakness. That's neurology. There's also something much older going on here. Archaeological sites across multiple continents have found dogs buried alongside humans, deliberately, carefully, with signs of genuine mourning going back at least 15,000 years. This predates agriculture. This predates most of what we think of as civilization. Humans and dogs have been grieving each other for longer than we've been farming. This isn't modern sentimentality. The human nervous system didn't just encounter dogs, it evolved alongside them, which means when we lose one, we may be activating grief pathways that are genuinely ancient, genuinely deep. Whether it was a dramatic husky who narrated every single walk with full theatrical commentary, or a pug who snored through approximately half your life, the nervous system doesn't rank them. It just knows they're gone. And this is why the most common, well-meaning piece of advice lands the way it does. You should get another dog. It'll help. It's not wrong necessarily, eventually, for some people, but in the immediate aftermath, it misses the entire point because what you lost wasn't a dog. It was that dog, the specific, weird, irreplaceable individual who had muffled little sleep barks that you learned to sleep through, who, for reasons that were never explained and never needed to be, had a personal vendetta against one specific shoe brand but left every other shoe in the house completely alone. Hold up a survivor's shoe, who had the exact spot behind their left ear that made their back leg go absolutely feral. You cannot replace a personality. You cannot replace a neural bond that took years to build. Another dog would be wonderful eventually, but they would be that dog, their own specific, weird, perfect self, not a replacement, a new relationship. Here's the part that I think is actually the most quietly startling piece of all this. Studies on pet bereavement, and there are more of them than most people realize, have found that grief intensity after losing a dog has no significant correlation with whether the owner considered themselves a dog person. People who said they weren't attached, people who got the dog mostly for their kids, people who described themselves as not being particularly emotional. The bond forms below the level of conscious identity, which means the grief arrives the same way. Below the level of where logic can argue with it. You can't think your way out of it. You can't tell yourself it shouldn't hurt this much and have that actually work. The bond was real, regardless of whether you narrated it that way. And the loss is real for exactly the same reason. Look directly at the camera. If you're watching this and you're in it right now, I just want to say this clearly. The disorientation you're feeling is real. The physical ache is real. The way the house sounds different is real. Your brain is not being dramatic. What doesn't help? Timelines. Other people's grief comparisons. Pressure to get a replacement quickly. Being told to focus on the good years. You know they were good. That's the whole problem. What research actually supports is quieter than that. Ritual acknowledgement. Marking the loss in a way that feels proportionate to the bond. Talking about them by name, not in the past tense if it helps, not in soft euphemisms. Letting the grief be as large as the love was, not as large as someone else thinks it should have been. So, it's just a dog. Let's look at what that word just is doing in that sentence. Just a dog who rewired your brain chemistry through years of eye contact and oxytocin feedback loops. Just a dog who structured the rhythm of your days for a decade. Just a dog whose corn chip paw smell you would recognize anywhere in the world, in any room, in any context, and whose absence from their blanket is one of the most disorienting sensory losses you have ever experienced. Just a dog whose dream barks you learn to sleep through, whose full-body zoomies explosion you both complained about and secretly loved. whose specific, inexplicable weight across your feet became, over years, the quiet neurological definition of home. The size of your grief is not a measurement of irrationality. It is a measurement of the bond. And the bond was real. If you've lost one, or if you're lucky enough to be loving one right now, I want you to do one thing in the comments. Just drop their name. That's it. Just their name. Let's make the comments section a place where they exist for a minute, where they get to be remembered by someone who actually wants to hear about them. And if this one meant something to you, share it with someone who's going through it. Sometimes the most useful thing isn't advice. It's just someone saying, "This is real, and you're not crazy for feeling it." Next video, we're going into why dogs seem to know when you're sad before you do. The science behind that is stranger and more beautiful than I expected. I'll see you there.